the verses immediately preceding verse 24, Jesus gives several clues that events are about to get critical. Verse 15, I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. Verse 19, this is my body broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Verse 20, this cup is the new covenant in my blood which is poured out for you. Verse 21, Jesus refers to the fact that he's about to be betrayed. He couldn't really have made it any more obvious. And in the light of that, I find what goes on in 24 to 27 of this chapter really just quite remarkable. And probably, with hindsight, the disciples would have found it remarkable as well. Because if they had been concentrating on anything Jesus said, they would have realised that now wasn't the right time to have a dispute about which of them was considered to be the greatest. It doesn't really reflect that well on them. And it might have been kinder of Luke to leave that bit out of his gospel. But he didn't. He chose to include it. And I think that is because, like so many things in the Bible that almost appear to be included as an aside, it actually has something really important to say. So I'd just like to share a couple of thoughts with you. Firstly, the situation highlights that it is actually possible to be so focused on ourselves and on our own concerns that we're unable to see properly the really important things that are going on. Because here we see Jesus use words like suffer, betray, my blood shed, my body broken. And he's saying this to men who love him. He's saying it to people who have had the privilege of walking with him throughout his earthly ministry and who have so many times hung on his every word. But still, when they're in a situation where they're about to be crushed by the sorrow of losing him, they're so busy talking among themselves that they miss the significance of what Jesus is saying. Things that may, in fact, have given them some preparation for the awfulness of what was about to come. So the first message contained within this short passage, I think, is urging us to watch for what Jesus is doing and to listen in quietness for what he is saying. And the second thing that this passage highlights is the beautiful grace that Jesus extends to his disciples. And I can't help feeling that he had the right to hope for better from them. These were men who claimed to love him, and indeed who did love him. But when he was telling them really important things, he was telling them he was about to die, and to die horribly. They're more concerned with essentially their own egos. And I think that alone would have caused Jesus to be utterly heartbroken. And apart from anything else, he knows there is so little time that they have left together. Why on earth are they worrying about these things? But instead of getting angry and upbraiding them, he shows them grace. He takes time to explain that in the kingdom of God, things don't work the same way that they do in the world. The disciples should have been focusing on Jesus, on what he was saying, but they lost their concentration, and we do that too, don't we? But even in his grief, Jesus showed grace and love to the disciples, and he shows grace and love to us. And thirdly, this passage challenges us to serve. Jesus said, I am among you as one who serves. And his whole life was one of service, feeding the hungry, healing the sick, teaching people about God, showing people how to live, and finally dying to set the whole of mankind in every generation free from their sin, making a way back to God for us, because we would never be able to make it back for ourselves. We can never outgive or outserve Jesus. But this is a challenge for us today to serve where we can. And perhaps especially now in the situation that we're in, to consider what serving God might look like. Perhaps it would just be checking on an elderly neighbour to see if they have everything they need. Or maybe calling somebody, young or old, who you know is on their own, just so that they can hear a friendly voice. Because when we serve God, we're worshipping him, and that is something beautiful. So I'm glad that this little incident was not glossed over or left out of the gospel, because it challenges us to listen to God and to watch for what he is doing. It reminds us of the grace that he showers on us, and it calls us to live our lives in service to him. So let's listen to him. Let's be thankful for the grace that he showers on us, and let's serve him joyfully as an act of worship. Amen.